Welcome to my December 2024 productivity report. Lots to get through today, and I am in my home office. For once, I decided that I needed a change of scenery, so I've moved from my seating and brainstorming area over here to this area over here, so you get a little bit of a different view of my office. But yeah, let's jump right into what happened at the end of the year. So one thing that I have to say first is that I love annual reviews, okay? The way that I talk about annual reviews in this productivity report, you might get the feeling that I actually don't like them. Not the case at all, so let me just put that out there before we get started. Let me phrase it this way, right? Every year is a natural reset point. It's like a natural cycle that we go through. And especially for those of us who work in the organizing and productivity industry, we see the same phenomena happen year after year after year. And what happens is that people pause in December to sort of take inventory of their life, and they go, well, where am I going? How did this year go? How am I doing? Am I on the right track? How far have I come? All of those are great questions. And it's so helpful to have a check-in with yourself, especially if you're not used to goal setting. However, what I want to point out is that once a year is not enough. So can you do annual reviews? Absolutely. And you should, but you shouldn't just do annual reviews. Okay? And I'll tell you where I'm coming from with this. So every January, those of us who are in the organizing and productivity industry, we all feel that influx of New Year's resolutions, right? Every January, we know the phone's going to be ringing off the hook, and people are super engaged. They're super excited to get started. They commit, but then they only commit for about a week. Okay, so come February, all of their goals are completely forgotten. They don't know what they were doing. Motivation is dead. They've officially quit, and because they realized that the goal that they wanted to achieve was too big, and they start to question whether or not they could do it. Basically, they bite off more than they can chew, right? And then when December rolls around again, those same people go, I wonder why I didn't make any progress this year. And that for me is a fascinating cycle to watch. And I know people have the best of intention, but it is incredibly annoying for me to see as a productivity coach, because I know exactly where they went wrong, yet they refuse to sort of see it. So needless to say, I love December and January basically for the fact that it is a natural reset point, and that we feel that new energy, and that urge to start over and to take it up a notch again this year. But it is also incredibly frustrating for me because I see the same patterns happen again and again and again. And what happens is I feel like people get misled a little bit, because a lot of content creators will share their annual reviews online, and they will talk about all the things that they accomplished. And you might get the idea that, they only do those annual reviews, and somehow in between, January and December, magic happens. Maybe they're superhuman. It's not that at all, okay? Those of us who successfully meet our goals on a regular basis, we check in with ourselves way more than once a year. Once a year is not enough. Can you do an annual review? Like I said, absolutely, and you should, but you shouldn't just do an annual review. There has to be more check-in points, more opportunities to figure out what needs to happen, right? So for me personally, I check in with myself once a week. Those of you who are in my program will know that. And that works because when you check in regularly, you sustain the motivation, you remember what goal you're working towards and why, you notice those changes, and you make progress in a whole different way. It is night and day, okay? You actually end up meeting your goals because you make them real. You take conscious effort, conscious steps towards them every single week. And that's how you get them done. You're not going to do this sprint and then overnight meet your goal and then be done. It doesn't work like that. And I really need to hammer that home because I see this happening so much. When you don't check in often enough, you either completely forgot, what goal you had or why you were working towards it, or you end up going down the wrong road and you're so far down the wrong path before you even notice that it is the wrong path, that it takes too long to get back. So we don't want you off course. We also want you to make progress, right? And the only way to do that is to have regular check-ins with yourself. Once a year is not enough. So with that said, and the rant out of the way, let me share with you the message, at its core that I want to put out this month. Skillful life navigation requires both a map and a compass. Okay? One or the other is not enough. So your destination, your goal, that's your North Star. That's where you want to get. You have to have the map, the bigger picture, and you also have to have the compass, meaning the details, in order to find it, in order to get there. You cannot do it with either one skillfully and efficiently. Okay? It's going to take you far too long. So that combination is what we need. We need the bigger picture and we need the details, and we need them in combination in order to make our goals real and actually accomplish them. And that combination is what grounds us. That's what guides us through all the changes, takes us over all the speed bumps, and shows us how to, overcome all the and manage all the change that needs to happen in order for you to become that person. You're not just going to wake up one day and become that person. You have to work towards it on a regular basis with smaller chunks, smaller steps. And we keep ourselves anchored to that goal by taking those smaller steps to make it easier. I teach micro goals a lot because that's what works. Overnight success is not overnight success. It doesn't happen that way, okay? You're not going to be just lucky and have something just happen to you. You have to happen to it, okay? And that's what my entire Mindful Monday mapping framework is based on. That's what I teach because that's what works. Solid decision making builds both on the bigger picture, your intuition, where you want to go, your feelings, and the details, the data, and all of the minutia that we need to understand in order to make sure that we are working towards the right things at the right time with the right resources. That's how you get to the outcome you want. And organizing and planning and productivity skills are nothing but life skills. So when you improve those, you don't have to worry about New Year's resolutions. In fact, I would probably say that most of us who are planners, who are organizers, we don't make New Year's resolutions because we know that it's not really a thing that works, right? We make solid goals and we work towards those goals, and it has nothing to do with sort of the annual year, if that makes sense. When you do that, you don't really have to worry about that regret, right? Because what I see happen so often is that at the end of the year, my clients go, oh, I should have done something more. And it's because they didn't check in early enough, right? So it's like they set a goal in January, and then Feb, March, and all of the months through maybe October, November, they completely forgot about that goal. So then by the time December rolls around, they realize they have this huge thing to accomplish by the end of the year, and they panic and they feel the regret, and they're like, well, I didn't get started. Oh, well, I guess it's not going to happen. And they give up, right? And so it's like, had you checked in with yourself early enough, twice in Jan, twice in Feb, maybe 3 or 4 times in March, you would have seen that coming far, far down the road. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be able to, if you're taking your goal seriously, you have to be able to see where you're at any given point. And I really want people to learn these types of skills because that's what helps you handle life, right? That's how you set out to meet those goals. That's how you accomplish more. That's how you get what you want in life. And that's what I want for everybody. And there's nothing more empowering than getting to the end of the year and realizing, oh my goodness, I met every single goal that I set for myself this year. I met, this thing and this thing and this thing, and I checked off every task. There's nothing better than that feeling. When you see that, oh my goodness, the progress that I've made is huge. And if we don't check in with ourselves enough, we don't notice that progress. That progress is so hard to measure because it's so small, but it does work. And when you check in with yourself regularly, you actually get to see that. You get to pause and feel that and enjoy that. It's so much more empowering. change is difficult. And for us as organizing and productivity professionals, like we're managers of change. Change is what uproots a system. Systems are what we thrive on. That's what we put together for people. And so when something happens, when a system changes, that's when we come in, right? To realign and update that system. And what happens is that when you improve your skills in terms of organization, planning, productivity, project management, you get to understand how to do that yourself. And without anchoring yourself to that, it's going to feel like you're sort of just drifting through life. So I really want to encourage you, if you're serious about meeting your goals, if you're serious about actually making progress and developing over time, you have to learn project management. You have to understand how organization and productivity, goal planning, and all of that works. There's no way around it. That also lets you switch between that bigger picture that I was talking about and the details. And you understand then that change is good for you. You welcome it because you know that it has your best interest at heart. You welcome it, you don't stagnate, and you see that flexibility and adaptability is basically at the core of every thriving system, right? It's evolution. And I'm not going to quote Darwin because I don't have any good quotes, but I'm pretty sure he would agree with me. That's what life is all about. All right, so with that, let's talk about how productive I was in December 2024. It was a big month for me. It was probably my most productive month to date, and I'll tell you why in a second. Did I overwork? Yes, and you'll hear about that as well in a moment. But the content that I produced, I think, was above and beyond even my own expectations. That doesn't happen a lot, and again, I'm not the one to normally toot my own horn like that. However, I think I probably outdid myself this month, and I want to make sure that I actually stop and say that and celebrate that, because that's worth celebrating. So a big part of productivity is to consider the ROI of what you're doing, meaning your return on investment for the resources that you're using up, right? So it's not just about how long something takes. It's about, is the effort, is the time, is the energy that you put into it worth it? Is this going to pay off long term? And we have to think about long-term benefits and play the long game in order to get where we want to go. So for example, I could spend 20 hours on a project, but if that project doesn't lead anywhere, then that was 20 hours wasted. Now, I could also spend 20 hours on something that's going to generate an insane amount of money or some other big ROI for me over time. That's a really good investment of my time, right? So it has to be something that leads to measurable, significant results. Otherwise, it is a waste of your time, energy, and your effort. And the key is to know, where to put your effort, where to place your resources. And again, that comes down to project management and planning. So this month, yes, I overworked, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. But in terms of ROI, I'm pretty sure I nailed it, because I am confident that the work that I put in this month is going to generate at least $250,000 within the next year or two. I mean, could even be more than that. So I overworked by 30 hours, and I did that consciously because I knew that that effort would be worth it. And if you break that down and you think about that in terms of an hourly rate, that is a pretty significant investment, you know what I mean, into my future. That's a pretty significant result to get back. So basically what it breaks down to is if we take $250,000 and we break it over 30 hours, that extra effort that I put in, that's effectively $8,333 per hour. That's a hell of an hourly rate. Does that make sense? So that's the type of ROI that I'm talking about. We want to invest our time, our energy, our effort, and our resources into things that are going to pay off for us long term. And this was one of them, which is why upfront I made the decision to overwork. So I don't know how to say it in any better way, but when you are planning a project, make sure that you take into account not just how long is this going to take, but also, is this worth my effort long term? Is this going to pay off long term? Is this something where I can put my resources and basically invest all of those resources in order to get more back. I mean, it would be the same in financial investment, right? You put $1 in, you get 2 back. Your time, your energy, all of those things are resources. And what you have to do is put 1 in to get 2 back. I hope that makes sense. If this is a sore spot for you, you don't know how to handle your resources or plan your projects in order to get that ROI, make sure you take a look at Mindful Monday Mapping, which is my program for leaders and CEOs and entrepreneurs. We are going to talk a lot about project management, how to properly plan our resources, how to properly manage our projects and close them out efficiently and make sure we get that ROI throughout this year. So all of 2025, we're going to have a big focus on project management in that program. So definitely consider jumping in there if this is something that you need help with. It's going to be a really good investment of your time, energy, and effort. In December, I completed 6 projects, which is double my target number. So my target number has been 3 for most of the year, and this month I completed 6. I think there's only been 1 month where I didn't get to 3, and it was because it was an irregular month of some sort. And you might wonder, well, if you're consistently performing above, why do you keep it at 3? Why not go to 6 then and have that be your base number and crank out more? Well, it's because, again, I'm not just considering the amount of time and effort that it takes. I'm considering all of my resources. I'm considering money. I'm considering how many other resources I'm putting into it. I'm considering my work-life balance and all of that. I do not want the pressure of having to crank out 6 projects per month and then consistently underperforming. I would rather underpromise and overdeliver. It's a much more empowering feeling. And I also want to make sure that I have the time and that I have the, again, energy, effort, all of the resources that I need available to me in order to do those projects properly. I don't want to rush through anything. So 3 I have found is an actual sweet spot for me. And some projects are bigger, as you know, some projects are smaller. So 3 I find is a really good, solid number for me. So I'm going to stick to that for all of 2025 as well. Keep in mind, though, that closing out projects is different from working on projects. So if you actually head over to my blog and take a look at my report, my time report of hours worked, you'll see that I actually worked on 10 different projects. Now I closed out 6 of them, but that's different. I moved 4 other projects forward and I will probably close those out in January. So, you know, I'm already on target for surpassing my goal in January, I guess is what I'm saying. And what you work on is not necessarily all of the stuff that you close out. So closing out projects is an art form, I'll tell you that. So again, that's project management. If that is a sore spot for you, make sure you let me know. I'd love to help you with that. When you get good at it, the world is your oyster because you actually accomplish what you set out to. There's nothing better. There's nothing better than that. My favorite project this month was updating my course, DPO Pro. DPO stands for Digital Photo Organizing. A pro is what you become when you take my course. And it was a beast of a project. I'll say it that way. I'm so relieved and so glad to have it done, though. I first released this course over a decade ago now. And it's gone through, of course, updates and changes over time, but nothing as big as this one. So the curriculum was completely rewritten and I re-recorded all the videos and it is now the best it's ever been. I'm so proud of the work I've put into it and I truly believe that it is the best and most comprehensive photo organizing course on the market today. And on top of it, I had the photo managers, which is our sort of industry association, recommend it as the course to take basically for those who are DIYers as well as for those who want to become pros. So that's very exciting. They've also included it with their Plus tier membership. Again, very exciting that they're willing to stand behind it like that. And it just speaks to, I think, how good the program is. Like I said, it was a beast of a project. And with that said, let's jump into hours worked because I need to tie those two together so that you can see the ROI that I put into it. I did definitely overwork and I knew it was going to happen, like I said, because I made that choice consciously. I had decided that if I was going to make all of these changes, to my course, my academy, my community, make all those updates, December was the month to do it. Because we all know December, it's the holiday season, everybody's more quiet, things are calming down, people are slowing down, and people are focusing on their families and just resting. And there's little buzz, in my academy and community around that time. Everything just kind of grinds to a halt. And I'm sure a lot of those of you out there who are content creators and who run communities and membership, you know what I'm talking about. The membership sort of just pauses for a moment. So it's the perfect time to implement changes and then to get things up and running for January, to get when people are ready to pick back up. Normally I spend about, I want to say 22, 25 hours or so working, part-time basically. This month I spent 125 hours working. So I went over by a bit, you could call it an additional week of work, right? So if you break that down, that's about 31 hours per week. Still not bad. Still a really great result considering the amount of work I put in, the amount of effort, but it is 6 more hours than normal per week. And the interesting thing about the result this month is that I was traveling as usual. I was in LA for a week. I was in Nashville for a week. So for the first 2 weeks of December, I actually didn't do much work. I was just hanging out with friends, networking, having fun, and so on. And most of the work that I did came in during the last 2 weeks of the year. That is how I decided to do it. And the update of DPO Pro was the biggest project of all. Actually, it accounted for 87 of my work hours, or about 70% of the total time investment. So no surprise there. I knew that was going to happen. It was a drastic switch up, but again, I'm focused on the bigger picture and putting in that extra 25, 30 hours for something that I can sell over and over again, and that's going to make me $250,000. That's a pretty good investment of my time. So I think that's a decision well made. December brought a lot of new memories because I said I was in LA, I was in Nashville, I met up with a lot of friends and family, and I took a lot of pictures, as usual, which I love. 1,763 photos. Still not that bad. Actually, I've gone double or more on some trips, but for this trip, 1,763 photos came in. I kept and I organized 1,253 of them. So a lot of that, like I said, came from hanging out with family friends, but I also did a little photo shoot and went to different concerts and all that. I had some friends that were performing in Nashville, and I was so excited to visit the Grand Ole Opry for the first time. I had gone through Nashville once before on a road trip, but I hadn't really paused and taken in the city, and I actually really liked it. I also spent time in Franklin, south of Nashville, which is a very charming little city that I love. And my daughter came with me, so we had some great fun there. And like I said, it's Music City. I'm a huge music fan, so some of my friends were performing and I got to see them live, which was amazing. It was just a win-win, and everything was just beautifully decorated for the holidays. So if you head over to the blog, I have some pictures that I shared, and I even shared some on my Instagram. So I'm actually super excited because I'm already planning on going back in December next year. In fact, I already have my tickets for the concert that I'm going to in December. So I will definitely be back in Nashville December 2025, and I'm so excited already. Lots more memories to come. For steps walked in December 2024, I didn't do as well as I had hoped. Again, it's because I didn't check in with myself enough. And that's on me. I decided not to. I decided to take a more flexible approach with that goal and just kind of see what would happen. And as we can see, I'm still not at a place where I can afford to do that. So I walked a total of 136,242 steps in December. And that breaks down to about 4,400 steps per day on average. So a lot of that, opposite of the productivity and the project management and the hours worked, that came in during the first 2 weeks. So basically what happened, if you look at the stats, is that for the first 2 weeks of December, I was out and about having fun, taking pictures and walking. The second part of the month, I was at home in my office, head down, completely focused, putting in an insane amount of work for updating my course. Didn't walk at all. So it was a very hit or miss month for me. I knew that was going to happen. Did I take steps to prevent it? No. So I can't be surprised at that result. That's on me. It came down to priorities. Again, I needed to get that update done, and the walking just had to, it had to take the heat, basically. I spent too much time in front of the computer, admittedly. I did walk, but I didn't walk enough. So it's just not in line with my target. So what I've decided to do is stay with this goal for 2025 as well and see where that goes. It is a flexible goal. So again, I'm going to kind of take it a little easy and see how I can improve it without much effort. It's working because I started out walking probably less than 1,000 steps per day, and I'm now up to 4,400 with very small and limited efforts. So I'm not overhauling my entire life in order to get to that goal. I think that's my point. I'm making small improvements over time, and I can see that that's compounding and that's actually working. So I'm trying basically a low impact way of meeting that goal and getting to the result I want without making any drastic changes. But because of that, it's just going to take a little bit longer, right, to get where I want to go. And it's still a bit hit or miss, and I'm still working on ironing out some of the details. So we're going to stick to 5,000 steps per day for 2025, and we're just going to see where that goes. I'm going to track it. It's going to be a no pressure situation. But again, I can't move the goalpost right now because I'm just not where I want to be. So we're going to see how 2025 develops in that area, and it's going to be fun to compare, I think, this year to next at the end of this year. So stay tuned. We'll find out. For home-cooked meals in December 2024, there was a slight drop. So we ended up at 78.6% as compared to November, which was 92.1%. I still met my target, which was 75%. So I'm super happy with that. But the decline was due to travel, and I know that. But if we focus on the bigger, picture and review for the year, I think I can officially let this goal go now. So with the exception of a few hiccups here and there, I've been consistently hitting my numbers for long enough now that I think that the habit has been created and I can actually officially let this one go. No need to measure it anymore. I feel like the habit is just there. Naturally, I know what to do now. Instinctively, I've made the switch in my life, and I'm comfortable now letting go and not tracking that anymore. It's just now become sort of a natural given thing that I cook more at home. So very exciting. Starting in January, I now have an open slot for a new goal. And I haven't decided yet exactly what that's going to be, so stay tuned for January to find out what's going to be replacing this goal. But I have a certain amount of slots for goals that I want to meet every year. Home-cooked meals are out. Something else will be coming in. And I'm super proud of myself for creating this habit. I think when we started, we were under 30% for sure per month. We were eating out a lot. There was a lot of convenience shopping, a lot of ordering, and takeout and all that. And we have now successfully, I feel like, switched that around. So that's a huge win. And again, proof that small steps in the right direction actually work. For books and learning, in December, I re-listened to one of my favorite books, which is The Cell by my fellow Swede, Fredrik Eklund. I like this book a lot for several reasons. One, he's very relatable, especially for me as a Swede, because him and I basically had the same upbringing, and a lot of the stuff that he went through, I went through. So I can definitely relate to that, as a Swedish American. It's a totally different vantage point that you have compared to somebody who actually grew up in the US. So we actually have a lot in common. It is fun to see just how much that is. one thing that I have to say, he's definitely better at selling than I am. But what I really like about his approach is that he takes a very holistic approach, which is something that I also appreciate. You know, selling, it's not just about the product. It's about you. It's about your delivery. It's about the circumstances. It's about how you present, your attitude, what you tell people, what people needs to hear, the appearance of everything, perception. I mean, there's just so much that goes into a successful pitch. And he clearly has a very good handle on that, you know, and he's right about a lot of things. So I really feel that it's valuable for the rest of us to hear, those of us who run our own businesses, who are entrepreneurs. Selling is a cornerstone of what you are doing. If you're not selling a product, you're selling yourself in essence, and letting people understand who you are in order for them to sort of be on board with your brand. So I would recommend that book to any entrepreneur that needs to improve selling and presentation. And no matter, I think, your industry or what you sell or how you're in, if you're an entrepreneur, you're in sales. You're in sales and you're in marketing. Pick it up on Audible or Amazon. It'll be a great read for you. And shout out, hej Fredrik, om du lyssnar. Kanonbok. Tack för att du skrev den. Den har varit jättehjälpsam. So I'm waiting for the sequel. In December, I didn't do any fika with Caroline again because of the holiday season. I knew that people would be super busy, and that was okay. I still have a little bit of a mailing list cleanup to do. I am very aggressively culling my mailing list because I want people who are extremely engaged on my mailing list and not a bunch of lurkers. Lurkers, I love y'all, but if you're not going to engage, then let's just save us both the hassle. You know what I mean? So I'm aggressively culling my mailing list only to bring it down to the core audience. And I'm going to do that a little bit more before I pick up Fika again. And I've had enough deep conversations with friends, I think, that my cup has been filled from that. I did have a lot of cravings for more connection lately. I think the last 2 weeks of December, because I was working so much, I had little time for anything else, and I kind of dropped the ball a little bit on connection. So I was feeling a little bit isolated, but I think January is off to a better start. So entrepreneurship is an interesting thing because when you're out networking, marketing, selling, talking, promoting, doing all that stuff, it's like oversaturating. There's so much connection. There's so much new information. All of that, it can be almost too much sometimes. Yet then, when you actually come home and you have to fulfill and deliver, you know, all the projects and on all of the promises, it can be quite isolating because there's nothing there. You know, there's no connection there. So it's a lot of that again, up and down, hit or miss, sort of either you have too much connection or not at all. And especially if you're working remotely, we feel that. So definitely if you're a remote worker, make sure that you take time to see people in real life. Make sure that you take time to actually call people on the phone and not just on Zoom. Make sure that you are, you know, having engagement in the real world outside of the virtual world. It'll ground you a little bit more. Make sure that you spend time with people in person as well. And Zoom calls and all of that is obviously nice, but in-person get-togethers, I can say it's a lot better. I have so much fun every time I go see my friends, and it just makes me realize how much more connection I actually need. And I think that's a big realization as well. I think for many years, I was thinking, oh, I'm an introvert, or I'm kind of a loner. I work remotely by myself. That's fine. Turns out I actually need more human connection than I admitted. So there you go. Make sure you're not completely isolated as a remote worker. You'll feel a lot better if you have some real life opportunities. For Success Celebrated, I have to once again mention DPO Pro. I know I'm oversaturating that topic this month, but there's just no way around it. That course has been in the works for over a decade to get to where it is today. The fact that it's still standing 10 years later after I released it, I think is a huge testament to how good it actually is. And finally now I can say that it's exactly where I want it to be. So there was version 2, there was version 1, you know, they were all great, but version 3, I've outdone myself. I don't say that a lot, but this is how I imagined that course would look when I first released it 10 years ago. And that's huge. That's worth celebrating. It also shows you that it takes a while to get there. You know, you have to consider what your students want, what they need. You have to experiment, you have to tweak, you have to create updates, you have to get it just right. A lot of content creators ask me, or even new, you know, course creators, they ask me, well, how do you create a successful course? And there's just no simple way to answer that. But the best way to start is to just build it. The first draft of your course is not going to be the final one. Far from it. You just don't have enough information. You don't have enough experience teaching it, and you just don't have enough people that have given you feedback yet. There are going to be updates. So again, we have to think long term. How are we going to create a successful course business over time? Not just how can I release this one course, get a bunch of people to buy it and make money. No. If you want to really create successful courses, impact people's lives, help them learn what you have learned, then you have to think long term. And a course needs to be refined. It needs to be updated as you learn, as you get better. I'm a much better coach and teacher now than I was 10 years ago. I'm a much better content creator now. I'm much better at explaining things. I'm a much better video creator, right? I'm much better at delivery and getting my message and points across. All of that takes time. And as you grow, as you learn, as you practice, you get better at that. So the simple fact is you don't know how people will respond until you release something. You don't know what people necessarily need help with. They have to come into your course and tell you, test it out, and then you have to make those updates. So the best way to get a course off the ground is actually to do market research, figure out what are people needing help with, and then you draft a curriculum based on that and you pre-sell that course. And it might sound counterintuitive, but basically that prevents you from sitting in a vacuum somewhere, imagining what people want, making it, polishing it, then releasing it, only to find out that that's not exactly what people needed. And then you have to redo the whole thing again. No, instead what we do is we do market research, we come up with the topics, we put a potential curriculum together, we get testers into that course, we pre-sell it, we make sure that that's what people want, and then we build it over time along with those folks. We have to do beta testing. We have to talk to people, get feedback in real time. It's just so much easier because then you're in it and you're able to make those changes faster. And again, comes back around to those check-ins, right? If you do an annual check-in, that is not enough. We need constant feedback. Is it more work? Yeah, but it benefits you in the long term, right? Because you get to the goal that you want to get to much faster instead of having these longer periods in between where you kind of forget what it was all about anyway. So that's what needs to happen in your life, with course creation, with anything that you approach. And I'm so proud to say that DPO Pro is finally there, where I needed it to be. And it took 10 years to get here, but now we're here. Let's rock and roll. I am so excited for what this course is going to do over the next few years. Cannot wait. And the amount of ROI that I'm going to get on the time investment that I put in this month is going to be astronomical. It's going to be phenomenal. So stay tuned for future updates to see how that's going. Can't wait. For this month, I'm going to recommend for Tea of the Month that you take a look at Harney & Sons Lunar New Year's Tea for the Year of the Snake. It is a beautiful oolong tea from China that represents new beginnings, and what better tea to recommend right at the end of the year than something that represents a new start. So definitely take a look at that. You can get it online from Harney & Sons, or I believe Cost Plus World Market also carries it in their store. So definitely check that out if you like a bit of sweet and spicy. Before I wrap up this video, I also want to say that you do not have to measure anything that I measure. The reason I put out these productivity reports is because I want to show you how I meet my goals, how I sustain motivation, how I track them, and how I understand what needs to happen next in order to meet those goals. So you don't need to track the same things that I do. In fact, you probably shouldn't unless you have the exact same goal. And I highly doubt that, right? So you need to find your own goals. You need to put into place a way to track those goals, a way to check in with yourself regularly and accomplish those by making measurable progress towards them. If you're not sure what goals you need to have in place for yourself or your business, definitely join us. We have quarterly planning for entrepreneurs 4 times a year. The next one is going to be in March. And that is where we walk through my process for how to figure out what to focus on in the next few months. So be sure to take a look at that. That's on my website at theswedishorganizer.com. Just click on quarterly planning and you'll see that pop up. Definitely understand that your goals and your metrics should be, and probably are very different from mine, and that's okay. Again, I'm just being very transparent and showing you what mine are, how I meet them, and how I think about them in order to accomplish them. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to see you again in January 2025.